What's up, everybody? I hope all is going awesome out there in your worlds. I just want to thank you guys, as always, for stopping by the channel for a video. It's greatly appreciated. Today, we definitely have a big movie to talk about, that being The Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Todd Phillips is directing this one. He's also penning the script alongside Scott Silver, with the talents of Zazie Beetz, Robert De Niro, Francis Conroy, and Brett Cullen filling out the cast. This is the story of Arthur Fleck, a man that has been pretty much disregarded by society. He's a man that's seemingly failed at trying to become a stand-up comedian. He's a man that has some social awkwardnesses and a form of mental illness that also finds the system has kind of cast him to the side as well. He's a man that's going to end up finding that all the hate surrounding him in the world is going to fuel this yearning for violence that's inevitably going to culminate by him taking on the persona of the Joker. I've routinely said Joker is one of my most anticipated movies of this year, but at the same time, I was a little bit torn about the concept of it. If you've seen some of my reviews in the past, you will know that I definitely love character performances, and more so, I love character-driven storylines, and that's what really did appeal to me about this movie. Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, my favorite comic book villain of all time, is certainly something that I felt had a ton of potential to it, and Joaquin Phoenix, think of him what you will, I think is an incredible talent. He has shown that he can disappear into a role, and with a film like this, I think having a true character actor in the lead is a huge bonus. On the other hand, I wasn't quite sure this origin story was something that I really wanted. I mean, I know there's been lots of backdrop on the character given to us in different formats in the past, but I think things just being left to the imagination can sometimes be better for building just an enticing mystique to a character. But we're just in this age where we want to know everything, so we get tons of prequels and tons of remakes like Rob Zombie's Halloween that, despite some intrigue to it, try to tell too much of the story, which kills a lot of the mystery. However, I guess with so many different versions of the Joker story being told over the years, and the potential of a darker comic book toned movie that wasn't trying to sell toys or build onto a lot of sequels, was something that did get me naturally excited. And overall, I thought this was a very, very good movie that was carried by a phenomenal performance that was just shy of being a great film. After watching the trailers, I went into this one kind of expecting a visually stunning film, and it certainly was in a very gritty way. I expected Joaquin Phoenix to be great as Arthur Fleck, and he without question delivers a haunting portrayal of a downward spiral. Todd Phillips and Scott Silver's script was the aspect of the film I was kind of curious about. I was really interested in what this origin of Arthur Fleck would look like as we peek into the mind of insanity, and it turns out this inside look we get is honestly a surprisingly familiar one here, because the story presented in this film was the weakest link in my opinion, and it was kind of a letdown. I'm sure a lot of people are going to mention that this film has some strong similarities to Scorsese films Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, and it certainly does. They're very noticeable. The progression of this character losing mental control was very much in the same path as De Niro's character in Taxi Driver, and Arthur Fleck's infatuation with talk show host Murray Franklin was a bit of a rehash of the story angle from The King of Comedy, and while it did at times mildly hinder the intensity of the story, it was also, in my opinion, still a nice blend for serving as a template to Arthur Fleck. The Joker is the clown prince of crime, and this story did a good job of laying the groundwork for that in certain areas. I will give this story credit though, because despite some similar beats in the progression of it, it was still able to kind of weave in some fun new elements for the character that I thought worked very well. Arthur has this condition that causes him to involuntarily laugh when the situation doesn't at all warrant that type of a reaction, and on paper, it really does seem like a trope that just seems pulled from the pages of a comic book. But honestly, when it's delivered through the performance of Joaquin Phoenix, there's just an eerie, painful uneasiness to it. These scenes really did capture my attention, and Phoenix just really did just portray the pain and lack of control perfectly to suit the character that we know, who has this just unmistakably sinister laugh. This film certainly does create a very haunting depiction of Arthur Fleck's descent into the persona of the Joker, but I wanted a more unique one, to be honest with you. I think Phoenix in this role greatly elevates the material, because there were some sections of the film that did drag a bit. This is really a 2-hour movie with a 90-minute story, and during the second act it was kind of noticeable at times. Now, this movie is visually stunning, and because of its gritty appeal, there's just an atmosphere to it that's very immersive. It does kind of help pass pass the time through some of the lulls, but just it's very repetitive at times. I think this is where the film really tried a little too hard to be artistic in its visual storytelling without enough time spent on the spoken. I think this depiction of Arthur Fleck from Phoenix is impressive to say the least. This character, he's been done so many times over the years before, but Phoenix was still very much able to make this role feel like his own. He invested in this character by losing more than 50 pounds, and it created just a creepy character from a visual aspect alone, but through his very talented method, I thought Phoenix did his best to really explore the mental aspects of the character. There was a layering to the downward spiral of Arthur Fleck, and I thought Phoenix hit every uneasy beat along the way, and it was very captivating. His laugh and facial expressions were excellent, and his unassuming posturing really captured a vulnerability and a fragileness to the character that I loved. However, with the progression of this narrative, I felt it kind of forced him to repeat too many of his actions. It kind of seemed like the filmmakers found a few great things that they really wanted to focus on from the performance of Joaquin Phoenix and kind of didn't really get too ambitious outside of that. They really relied on Phoenix a little too much with his mannerisms and his physical acting, which, do not get me wrong, they're just fantastic. They're sinister. He was amazing in this movie, but he was equally as chilling in the dialogue-driven scenes as well, which there just was not enough of in my opinion. I thought his delivery was calculated, his timing was impeccable, yet the spotlight was routinely on the visual and not exploring the mental issues he had and how they came about. I honestly wanted more of a mental deep dive into who this person was and how his personality came to be. There were sections of his backdrop that I felt were very interesting and very unique, but they were kind of brushed over very quickly with exposition-style dialogue and not given any time to explore. Instead, we're given a lot of familiar scenes of a man facing torment and a downward spiral that we've seen a good amount of other characters face in other movies throughout the years. We get a lot of Phoenix awkwardly dancing and posing that at first sight was very ominous, but this visual depiction kind of lost a little bit of the impact each time it was repeated, and I think some of these minutes could have just been spent on developing a better understanding of who this man was from the ground up to kind of frame his mental foundation a little bit deeper. I did, though, very much enjoy the 70s backdrop and the economic class struggle that's going on during the time. I thought just how this social turbulence was able to fuel the actions of Fleck was nicely constructed. It created a version of Gotham that was kind of told through the eyes of the other perspective, and this focus on the darker side was very appealing to me. It was something new. It didn't really feel like a comic book movie, and I loved it because when the small references would drop in, they would just create an interesting depth to the story overall, kind of like going back to a comic book movie where a city is just in violent oppression with a superhero that's needed to come in and save the day, only seeing that story told from the viewpoint of the oppressed, and it was pretty gripping and interesting to see at times. Visually, this is a beautiful movie. It's very reminiscent of 70s cinema with simple techniques and little camera movement. This really allows the backdrops and the performances to carry the attention, and I thought it worked. The creation of the cityscape is very gritty and ominous, which matches the tone of the movie perfectly. There's a garbage strike going on at the time, so trash bags are on every street corner, which just creates a very grimy mood to each scene, almost as if like you can never feel safe during any moment. There's an underlying tension going on that I very much enjoyed, and it's all complemented by a musical score that truly is the heartbeat of the movie. The movements of Arthur Fleck and the methodical camera pans do have a flow that's nicely timed to the score, and it's just very elegant while at the same time being just cold and very eerie and haunting, which complemented the bizarre performance of Joaquin Phoenix about as good as you can hope for. The artistic effort is great in this one. The performances certainly are as well. I just wished it all would have been wrapped into a story that took me to places that would just make me experience torment like I've never seen. And while this one was dark and twisted, it wasn't as demented as I had hoped. It felt a little too reliant on replicating the vibe of a Scorsese crime drama, and while the combination works, it was still a bit derivative. But as a comic book movie, it showed efforts in trying something new. I had a good time with it, so overall I'm going to give Joker 90% on the entertainment meter. It was able to give me something different while at the same time something similar, and I enjoyed it overall. I went home from the theater. I did have this movie on my mind long after watching it, and when rethinking about the different layers of the story and what it brought to the character, I felt it all worked. Could it have been better? I definitely think so, simply by just having a story that didn't fit into the template of another's creation, one that wouldn't kill a lot of the unpredictability in this one, but it was still a highly engaging movie that showcases what I think is an award-worthy performance from Joaquin Phoenix. Now for today's My Silver Screen recommendations, I'm going to be picking two movies that seem to greatly inspire this one, those being Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, and as a third, I'm going to be selecting Higher Learning, a film from John Singleton that also captures the mental collapse of a character that has some violent repercussions to it. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. I'd love to talk movies with you guys, share it with your friends, and without question, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can never miss a video. Here are some links to some recent reviews just in case you missed them. All my social media links and the link to our official website are down in the description below, and I'll catch you next time.